He's right about the timing. I think to do justice to the topic, I would need to take everybody's slot in today. So I'm going to summarize something that is very important for all of us in Gibraltar. We face a new challenge now, and in order to understand what we're facing, we need to know what the past has been like and the relevance of the past. The UN is what brought me into politics. In 1960 was when the resolution on decolonization was passed by the United Nations General Assembly, and I was 21 years old. Then, in 1964, when I was 25, the Committee of 24 came to the conclusion, which was very positive from our perspective, that the declaration of decolonization and independence was fully applicable to Gibraltar. The importance of that, notwithstanding everything that has taken place subsequently, is that in order to be fully applicable, it had to have a colonial people. You cannot decolonize an empty territory, even if it is technically a colony. There is a territory called Ascension Island in the Atlantic. The nearest inhabited place is St. Helena, with a couple of thousand people. St. Helena is on the UN list. Ascension is not on the UN list, because all it is a military base and a population of wild donkeys that escaped from somebody who brought them there. So there is nobody to decolonize. Because you don't decolonize territories, you decolonize people. And you decolonize them by transferring the power that is exercised by what was known as the colonial power and became known as the administering power to the people in the territory. The administering power, since the Charter of the UN in 1945, Chapter 11 of the Charter tells us that the administering power, in effect, administers the territory until the people are ready to take over and do the administration themselves, and therefore they attain self-government. The attainment of self-government is the yardstick of decolonization. We've been ready for that for a very long time. But the impediment was created when, in addition to recognizing our rights, the UN went on and put a caveat and said, but since there is a dispute between the United Kingdom and Spain, the United Kingdom and Spain should get together to resolve the dispute. I was 25 and I decided to get involved in politics to stop them. Otherwise, I might not be here talking to you today. I might have done something else in the last 45 years. So I really got involved in politics, not because I wanted to be in the government, not because I wanted to be in parliament, but because I wanted to stop Spain taking Gibraltar over. And that is still the thing that I am committed to doing. They will have to wait till I'm in the North Front before they have any chance to get to this place. We've just celebrated the 50th anniversary of our referendum. That referendum, which was a fantastic occasion for us, was an occasion when we thought, by expressing our views democratically, we would make a difference. The United Kingdom put to the people a paper which was not self-determination, but was giving us a choice, and for the first time, we were given the opportunity to say what we wanted. The choice was, do you accept the very generous proposals of the fascist Señor Castilla? And they were very generous. And incredibly generous in Franco's Spain. They said that if we joined Spain in 1965, the UK, the Spanish government would allow exclusively Gibraltarians to belong to trade unions. Spaniards would not be allowed. And Gibraltarians exclusively in the whole of the Iberian Peninsula would be allowed to go on strike. Well, look, I mean, who's going to go on strike with Franco there? Anyway, look, we go on strike. We used to go on strike at the drop of a hat. That was not such a generous offer. So the UK misjudged the position in the UN and thought, well, look, I'm going to demonstrate and I'm going to do something that is very democratic. I'm going to let the people look at the proposals and make up their own mind. The UN then passed a resolution telling them, don't hold a referendum before it was held. After it was held, they passed a number of resolutions which were the most hostile resolutions that have ever been passed in the UN about any colony. They said, after it was passed, the resolution that you've passed is contrary to what the UN is telling you have to do, and we do not recognize it. They then passed a resolution rejecting the result. And then they passed a resolution in December 1968 where they actually said something which was utter and complete nonsense, because they said in the preamble to that resolution, which asked them to go and talk to Spain in January 68, sorry, not in December, January 68, they said that a colony that fragmented the territory of another country was contrary to the Charter of the UN. Every single colony fragmented the territory of somebody. That is what having a colony is. You invade a place and you take a chunk of it and you make it your colony and you fragmented what was there before you got there. So they invented a concept which is non-existent, which they applied to us, and which was included in this resolution, which was 2353 Roman 22. The Roman 22 is the year, starting with the year 1, which was 1945. So if it's Roman 22, it's 22 years after the first UN meeting. And that resolution was reflected in subsequent resolutions. So we had a situation where the resolutions saying no referendum, saying reject the referendum, and saying after we reject it, because you are a colony, you are fragmenting the territory of Spain, and the way to decolonize you is to integrate you with Spain and cure the fragmentation. When Franco died in 1965, the United Kingdom and David Owen as Foreign Secretary started a process with Senor Oreja in Strasbourg, the so-called Strasbourg process, which of course I opposed and the GSLP opposed. In fact, they tried to justify it in Parliament because Sir Joshua said that I was constantly moving motions in Parliament against ceding sovereignty. Sir Joshua said, we are going to Strasbourg to tell Senor Oreja that we're not prepared to talk about sovereignty. We're not going to talk sovereignty, we're going to go to tell him we're not prepared to do it. And he went, and then he came back, and then he went the second time, and then he went the third time. So the third time I raised the matter again in the Parliament, and I said, well, look, I want an explanation. I mean, you've told this man that we are not prepared to talk about sovereignty, and you've gone back and told him again, and now the third time you told him, and you know, taking into account that he's called Oreja, what's the matter with him? That isn't he listening? Well, Strasbourg opened the door to Lisbon, and Lisbon was supposed to open the frontier in 1980, but it was delayed. And then in 1982 it was ready to open, but then there was a Falklands War, so it was stopped. And then we came to Brussels, the Brussels betrayal. Why was Brussels a betrayal? Am I being too harsh? Well, I'll tell you why it was a betrayal. Because when Franco closed the frontier, he closed the frontier because we were not prepared to put sovereignty on the table. And when they opened the frontier in 1984, they opened it because we were prepared to put sovereignty on the table. So I don't think there's any doubt who won. If we were prepared to talk about sovereignty, we didn't need to wait 16 years to say we were prepared in Brussels. We could have said yes in 1968 and the frontier would have never closed in the first place. The Brussels process was brought to Parliament for a vote. Sir Joshua Hassan defended the Brussels process and said he supported it. And he said that it was no different from Lisbon, because in Lisbon they had said we've got to talk about all the things that we don't agree on, and that by implication meant sovereignty. But on this occasion, sovereignty was specifically mentioned, and it was said that both sides had agreed. That is to say, the United Kingdom, for the first time since the matter was raised in the UN in 1964, for the first time in 1984, 20 years later, agreed in a document to talk about sovereignty. And that was welcomed by the United Nations as the implementation of all the resolutions that had gone before. That is to say, we agreed in Brussels to talk about sovereignty, and the frontier was open because we capitulated, and we agreed in Brussels to discuss sovereignty on the basis of the resolutions of the UN, which included the resolution that rejected our referendum, which included the resolution that said that we were a colony in Spain. Not that this was a British colony in Gibraltar, that Gibraltar was a colony which had broken and fragmented the territorial integrity. That is what Spain calls is the doctrine of the UN. We reject that it's a doctrine of the UN, but in Brussels we made it our doctrine as well. And it's not ours, because we were never in favor of it, but the UK did. And something very curious happened. In the statement that was published here by the convent, and in the debate that took place in November 1984, or in December 1984 in Parliament, the agreement was done in November, when the paragraph concerning sovereignty was put in the text, in the motion in Parliament, and in the press release in Gibraltar, it said that both sides had agreed to discuss the issue of sovereignty. But then we discovered that the Spanish version said, los temas de soberanía, the issues of sovereignty. What is the difference? What is that S? Well, look, it's the difference, like the difference between day and night. Because not only did we have a dispute with UK on the question of discussing sovereignty, but Spain says that there were two issues of sovereignty. The sovereignty of the territory that they had given away, which ends at casemates, and the sovereignty of the territory which had been stolen from them, which goes from the casemates to the frontier, where half of our population lives. So half of our population is now, on stolen territory, according to the Brussels Agreement. And the convent said it was a typing error. Some typing error, that is. Well, we don't accept there are issues of sovereignty. There's only one issue. It is an issue of sovereignty for Spain. And there is another issue, which is the issue for us, our self-government, our self-determination, our ownership of our homeland. And it's on that basis that Brussels betrayed all the things that we believe in, because when Brussels was done in 1984, it had been cooked up a year before that, in 1983, and it was never put to the electorate. And now we are in a situation where we are facing something in Brexit, where Spain is trying to revive, Brussels is trying to revive the 87 agreement, and is trying to take us back to the place where we were, because they think they've got us in a corner and they think they hold all the aces. Well, I am not scared of Brexit. I can tell you that in my view, we will be out in 2020 with no deal. It's important that we should be in for the continuation of the period. But you know that Her Majesty the Queen has made me a Knight Commander of the Order of St. Michael and St. George. And St. George is reputed to go around the world killing dragons. I'm not one... I'm not one for honors, but I'm quite like the idea of being a knight commander and killing dragons. I killed a dragon at Strasbourg, and it metamorphosized as Lisbon. I killed it at Lisbon. It metamorphosized as Brussels. I killed it at Brussels, and now it's metamorphosizing at Brexit. And I'm going to be in my knights, on my horse with my lance, and I will kill it at Brexit.